Right. I always say it's never too early or too late to live an honest life. And that's why about a third of the people that we help with Heartstrong are people who are my age and older, which today let's go with 27 and up. Don't laugh too hard at that. It'll make you feel bad. Yeah. But people who 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago were unable to deal with what they went through at these schools, so they just turned it inward and forgot about it. The youngest person was 13. The oldest person we helped was 68. A retired Presbyterian minister who at 68 was finally able to not just learn how to accept himself, but then start living an honest life. And I think that's exactly what we need to do. And obviously the earlier we do it, the less wasted time we have in our lives. But back to your father, he must have been one of those liberal Methodists like the people next door to me growing up who actually knew how to love their kids. Those liberal Methodists, unbelievable. It's funny because I remember very clearly that the neighbor, he tried to get my parents to let us go to the vacation Bible school that they had in the summer at the Methodist church. And even though they were using the same vacation Bible school curriculum that my parents used in theirs, they still wouldn't let us go into that Methodist building. They were so faithful, stubborn about it. Because I think the neighbors were trying to drag us out of where we were, but they tried at least, which counts for something. Yes.
Have you been able to track somehow or other the schools where you're getting responses from some of these kids, and maybe that might turn into something like going back to those schools and doing some sort of a program?
And are any of them near us?
Oh, they're all over this town. Yes. I've only been able to speak on campus with permission to 2 schools, and both of them here in Michigan. About 10 years ago, I did 22 different programs around southwestern Michigan, and one of the schools I did a thing at Grand Rapids Community College for their lecture series, and at that lecture series was one of the higher-ups at Aquinas College over there, and he came to me afterwards and said, we can't really have you come and speak, but I'd like to invite you to come and speak in the faculty lunchroom. I'm like, okay, I don't care. I have no ego. I don't care where I speak. If people are eating or whatever, I don't care. So, and then somebody said, you're going to be the first gay person to ever stand behind a podium with the Aquinas College logo on it. And I thought, well, there's a photo opportunity, so why not, right? Yeah, so I went and I spoke at the faculty lunchroom, and nobody knew I was coming. They were just in there eating their lunches, and I show up and started talking almost exactly what I just did. It was a little shorter, but so that didn't go over well. And we were told after that we were not allowed to come on that campus anymore. Not by the guy who invited us, but by somebody else. But we were still there, and the few students that showed up because they knew I was coming, we did it for them. Because we wanted to make them feel like in the midst of all this stuff that happens around them that might make them feel, bullied or oppressed, there was actually somebody from the outside who would come in and do this. And then about a week later, we went to Hope College in Holland, which is just a great school. But they had an unofficial student group there it wasn't a gay group specifically, but an unofficial diversity group or something. So they found out about me and they asked if I would come, and then they said, all the other gay speakers we ask, are asking us to raise like $5,000 to pay for them to be here. And I'm like, I can charge people money to go and speak? That was news to me. I didn't know that. And they said, so how much are you going to charge? And I'm like, I'm just going to show up. I don't know that I had to charge money. But anyway, so that was kind of weird, right? That nobody would just go and talk to them. So we went. There's about 5 students and about 4 different people from the faculty. I didn't really know who they were, but I did my talk similar to this. And then at the end, the guy from the music department stood up and said, he was all red, and he was like, well, I just want everybody to know that we don't treat gay students like that at this school, which is just, clearly not true. And then before I could say that, one of the girls who, she wasn't out, but she was gay, she stood up and she said, well, I just want to remind you about what happened to me last semester. She said, I was going through counseling here at the school for being gay because they found out, and it was either get kicked out or go through counseling, so I chose counseling. And then my counselor was speaking in a student assembly and outed me in front of everybody. Do you remember that? And of course, he then turned even more red and left because he obviously didn't expect her to be the person standing up and talking about it. But she was so empowered, let me tell you, because she got to not just talk about what she went through, but she got to confront somebody who was trying to deny that something like that existed at that school. And then we were also told that we were not allowed to go back to that campus by other people in the thing. But we were still there. We got some nice wooden shoes with rainbows on them from the student group. It's fantastic, right? But most of the schools that we go to when we do a visit, we're obviously not allowed to speak there. And I don't even approach them asking to speak because I really know what the result is going to be. However, we do distribute information to school leadership. We have other materials that we send directly to the leadership about the work that we do.
The library will be
Closing in 30 minutes.
Please begin to make your final
But
materials
we do those, we mail them information, mostly because we know they're warned students about us and give them information. But also in case there's somebody who wants to talk about it, they can certainly do that. But generally speaking, they just don't, respond well to what we have to say. But again, if they want
You've
to,
got the conduit of the students.
yes.
from those schools.
And also on the Heartstrong website, if you go through it, you'll see that we've actually put the language for non-discrimination and non-harassment policies for religious schools. We've actually written it, put it on there so they can copy and adopt it if they want to do the right thing at their school. So at least visit a page on our website, but it's still there to make it easy in case somebody wants to do the right thing. So, we've thought about all these things and tried to make it easy for a school to do the right thing. But, oh yes, we've been there several times, yeah.
How about Western?
No, not invited, not invited. Western Michigan? Yeah, I've spoken there in the past several times, yeah. We had good turnout. We didn't have anybody nasty. Yeah, usually when I do, like if it's a public school or public college, usually, we do have the group of people that come with their turn or burn T-shirts, or people yell out Satan or something. But I used to be one of those people. I know exactly why they're doing it. So those things just mean that I'm saying the right words to motivate them to say it. So to respond in that way. So I used to do it, so I understand them. It's pretty easy. Okay. Yes.
Do you think that the younger generations are becoming more accepting? We have a lot of young people at our church, and I saw this family. They had 3 young children. I said, "Oh, it's so nice to see you here." And he said, "Well, we read in the Gazette, in the faith page, that you accepted everyone." And he said, "We've been so turned off by the judgmentalism of churches
Right.
that we wanted to come to someplace where everyone was accepted." Now, I hope that's a trend. Do you think it is or not?
I think it is a trend for people who don't come from the really strict religious upbringings. Those still tend to be the same as when I was in them. But generally speaking, I think there's a lot more openness. And there's also a thing with a lot of kids now where they think it's cool to say they're lesbian or gay, even if they're not really. And people always say that's a bad idea. I think it's a good idea. Let's mix it up and confuse everybody so that nobody has to worry about what people think about them, right? And that's why I always say, like you're talking about your church, is that if you believe in something, you have to be loud about what you believe in, because otherwise people only hear the other point of view. And that's why whatever your convictions are, you need to be really loud about it. Yes?
Mark, I'm just wondering, is there a need for support groups or some other network where people can kind of get together with other folks and
I mean, for
talk
what
about
we
the
do?
issues who are dealing with this experience?
Yes. If you go on our website, you're going to see 2 things. One is the Heartstrong Network, which also, if you look Heartstrong Network up on Facebook, which is made completely up of people who, are adults, whatever age they are, who have been through these schools, kind of bringing people together, not just to share the same experience, but also to, again, remind people that they're not alone. There actually are several, we've tried to do this for years and years, it's a little hard, but there are many schools, particularly more colleges than anybody else, than grade school or high school, that actually have unauthorized GLBT alumni groups. Those you can also find through Heartstrong. We've been trying to help them. It's kind of hard to get people who have been through this to want to go back and try to talk about it or deal with it if they've moved on with their lives, which is actually a very healthy thing to do. But for those who can, it's always good to be visible. We also have what's called Heartstrong Ambassador Program, which is under our volunteer page, where we have people who represent Heartstrong in their town or community or wherever. Cannot have too many of those. Actually, with our materials, and also as a local resource, if we have a student, whether it's a grade school or a college student, that actually needs some immediate help. And that's something that anybody can do, is just be a local resource to help direct us to people in the community that can actually help somebody, if it's whether it's professional therapy or sometimes these kids are thrown on the street, so we need local housing, all that kind of stuff. That's all part of the Heartstrong Ambassador Program, which is on our website as well.
Okay, one more question.
Okay.
Please.
Your
And
question.
To kind of piggyback on that, the Kalamazoo Gay Lesbian Resource Center is also a tool in Kalamazoo. If you want to get involved with that, I have business cards.
Great.
But I got just one more
Yes.
part of that. You said that we kind of make this big thing about the coming out story, and it's my belief that what happens after that coming out story is probably the most important thing. And do you have any comments or experience in regards to what's the best practice there? Talk to you.
You mean how to talk to somebody about coming out? Well, that's one of the reasons why I wrote It's Not About You. And in the back of the book, there's a thing called the 3 C's, which is what I've learned to live my life by, which I think helps you from before you come out to after you come out. First C is courage. We have to have courage to be who we are. And that means learning how to accept yourself or identifying who it is that you are or what you're feeling, which can be fluid. It can change over time. But having courage to be and understand who you are is the first step. The second C is confidence. We have to have confidence about not just the things we believe in, but about who we are. Because if we lack a little bit of confidence about this, it opens the door for people who don't agree with us to kind of put their foot in and their advice, which is always a bad idea. And with that confidence, we then have to have the third C, which is consistency. We all need to live our lives very consistently, whether we're GLBT, whether we're allies. When it comes to this issue, we have to be consistent about the things we believe in and not falter. Otherwise, that also leaves the door open for people who don't think the way we do to put their information in, because they are looking for signs of weakness. And if we don't have confidence and consistency, then that gives them an open door. And if you can use those 3 things in your life as you're living it from before you come out till after, that actually makes the transition a lot smoother. And that's also helps influence people, whether it's parents or family members. It might make it a little easier for them to understand you, not you specifically, but you in general, if you're living your life with courage, confidence, and consistency. That would be my advice about that, and that's why I wrote that part in that book, was to give away the 3 C's. I'm done talking. I appreciate you listening to me, but I do want to talk about what's on our table directly behind you. My father used to have these missionaries show up at his church every few weeks or months, and if you've ever been to a Protestant church during a missionary visit, it's quite a spectacle. They would unload all this stuff on tables, and usually with dried out snake skins and other little things they picked up along the way. Then they talk about their missionary work, and they try to raise money, and then they pack it all in their car and leave. And my sisters and I would stand by the side of the church, and we would point and laugh and say, what a horrible, cheesy life that is. Well, as I said, my table's right there. I have a car in the street with lots of miles on it. I've learned you're not supposed to make fun of people for any reason. What's on that table is how we support ourselves as volunteers. As I said, Heartstrong is an all-volunteer organization. I have copies of most of my books up there. The Preacher's Son, there's a follow-up book called Lost Found. The newer book, which is called It's Not About You, looks like this. There's also a book I co-wrote called The Do's and Don'ts of Dealing with Religious Right. There's several children's books up there. One of them is my boyfriend Rod's book called The Boy Who Wanted to Be a Dancer. It's a great book talking about how important it is to follow your heart to become the person you're supposed to be. Rod is also an award-winning cake artist. He's won 2 cake challenge competitions in the past year, if you know what those are. And so he's brought some of his gourmet cookies and red velvet brownies and such. So if you don't like to read, you can still help us by having some lemon rosemary shortbread cookies or red velvet brownies. Yeah, there is. And plenty of coffee. And also on the table, I have a bunch. There are lots of our GLBT positive tracks, and those are free. Feel free to take as many as you like. I would like to not take any of those with us when we leave today. So, if you have an organization and you ever have info tables or anything, it's a great way to just pass out stuff to people. Those are free, so feel free to help yourself with that. Any other questions you might have, please feel free to ask me afterwards, or you can email me. It's quite easy to find me. Thank you.